What's up, Melanated family? How's everybody doing today? This is your brother Harrison, back for a brand new episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. I'm excited today. I got one of the movers and shakers in our community family. So, a big part of what I do here is pointing out to people in my community, Black people, melanated people, that all of us can do something. Like, if you don't like police brutality, if you don't like how we're treated, if you don't like systematic racism, any of the ills that we go through, there's actually something you can do on an individual basis to affect our outcome. And that's a variety of different things. So on the show today, I seen this article about this brother, and it just inspired me to reach out to him because, again, finding ways to help our people is one of the goals to getting us to where we need to be. So on the show today, family, I have the brother James Samuel Jr., who is the founder and CEO of a new app called Anjel Tech. Now, the app allows users to immediately begin live streaming and transmitting footage to their family members when they're in any type of dangerous situations, you know, understanding what we go through with the police, understanding just how important video footage is these days, how much it's actually helped us in several different instances. So something like this is extremely important. This is a Black-owned business out of DC. Everybody, please welcome the brother James Samuel Jr. How you doing today, brother?
Harrison, I'm doing great, man. I'm blessed. I'm highly favored. I thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. I do not take it lightly. It is a privilege to speak to you and your audience today. And we're here to save lives, man. And that's what it's about. Bottom line, 100%. I will let everyone know right up front, my foundation and my basis is as a child of God. And, you know, that's how I flow. That's where I get my energy from. And so I just want everybody to know that's what you're going to hear from me. And if you don't, then I did something wrong. And I have to try again next time better.
Definitely. So I want to get into really quickly because, again, I read some things about your history, but tell me where you grew up, James. Was it in DC?
No. I mean, I moved to DC in 2015. I'm not from DC originally. I moved here about 6-7 years ago now to run the congressional affairs, legislative affairs shop for my 14,500 person, federal agency. I did that for 3 years. But I'm originally born in Alabama, and my dad was in the military. So me and my mom, dad, brother, sister, we traveled growing up. And then my dad retired back to Alabama, where I was born, same town, Eufaula, Alabama, in the southeast area. Spent the last 2 years of high school there. Then I went into the military myself to the Air Force Academy and then on to serve. And I, as of today, yesterday was my last day in federal service. So I spent 31 years, 31.75 years, almost 32 years of federal service.
Wow. And
I started when I was 4, right?
Yep, you just 35th birthday, huh?
It is.
So talk to me about your childhood in Alabama, because you mentioned your father. So I'm assuming you grew up with both parents in the home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how was your experience growing up in Alabama?
So a couple things. Yeah, I'm so thankful. I had both mom and dad there, the whole time. Dad just passed away actually last November. He went on to heaven just at 75 years of age, so he wasn't that old, right? Still had a lot of life left in him, I believe, but he went on last November, so it was about almost 4 months, since he passed away. Mom's still doing fine down there in Alabama. I didn't grow up in Alabama because my dad was in the military. I grew up all over the world. So I did elementary school in England, those formative years, 1st through 5th grade in England. And then interestingly, I came back after our term in England, his assignment there, and I went to 4 different schools in my 5th grade year. And so I started at Lakenheath Elementary School in England, just outside London. And then we came back. I was at Sanford Street Elementary School in Eufaula, Alabama, my hometown, for a few months while Dad went out to Vegas to get our housing. And then we moved to Las Vegas. That was his next assignment in Nellis Air Force Base. Then I went to Fay Heron year-round school for a few months until we got base housing. And then base housing put me into J.E. Match Elementary School, and I finished my 5th grade year in Match.
Damn. Okay, so see, because I didn't know the military brat part. So talk to me about, like, damn, brother, I went to 1 elementary school, 1 junior high school, and 1 high school. So every time I hear somebody even speak of going to a different school in their same town, I understand the adjustment. But talk to me about, like, the benefit of the cultural differences, not being in one place, that one type of culture is practicing things. Like, talk to me about how that may have helped you being around all these different people.
Yeah, man, it was a huge help. It made me global from just about birth, right? I mean, when I came back when we came back from England, I was 10 years old, and I had a really thick, heavy British accent because, you know, first through fifth grade, I was in England and I was around all these Brits and learned about British culture and the Union Jack, you know, before I learned about the Star Spangled Banner and, you know, how the United Kingdom's flag is made up of the flags of, you know, Scotland and England and so on, Wales, and just British culture. And, you know, I would say I'm not British. And then people go, listen at you, you are British. Listen how you said British. I mean, that's very British of you to say it that way. And I was defending myself. I had to learn how to fight, you know, in the fifth grade because people were teasing me because they thought I was a Brit. And so that was just interesting, you know, and then visiting, you know, Europe, Western Europe as a child. And then, you know, going into the military myself, and I've lived all over the world myself. You know, I've deployed to Afghanistan. I spent 6 months there. I've lived in East Africa, Djibouti. I've traveled to Kampala, Uganda, and Entebbe, and, you know, Addis Ababa, you know, Ethiopia, and, you know, the whole Horn of Africa. And, you know, I've been to Mongolia, Ulaanbaatar, and, you know, Tokyo, and South Korea, and, you know, I've lived and been all over the world, all over the United States. So that started at birth. So it helped me understand many different cultures, and it helped me understand many different types of people. It helped me understand the commonalities in all people. It helped me understand different agendas, different perspective, you know, how the world is seen, how we're seen, both as Americans and as African Americans all over the world, especially by Africans. And I learned, I've had an education in the world since birth.
You know, the funny part, I'm of course, I've only lived in the United States. I'm a Black person, a melanated person who understands our history here, and I want to do something about it. And I see the injustices like a lot of us do, and I want to do something, you know. But I would imagine if you're a Black person who's had to see this type of thing, a version of it, or just the perspective of it from different cultures in different countries, that's perfect information. I think we all need to be that culture. So talk to me about, just in general, James, in these different countries, when it comes to how they view Black people, how they view African Americans, what were some of the varying opinions that you were getting?
Well, first of all, you got to remember, of the African diaspora, right? The dispersed Africans that are all over the world, and because everyone came from Africa, right? Let's just have some history and maybe even some church. You know, we all came from the cradle of civilization there on the continent of Africa. And Africa is a continent, right? It's made up of 58 countries, I believe. The most populated of which is Nigeria, at about 215 million people in Nigeria alone. And I think it's around the size of Texas or so. And then the second most populated country is Ethiopia at about 125 million or so. And it's on the Horn of Africa on the east side. And there's only about 800 million people on the entire continent of Africa. All right. And 1/4 of those live in Nigeria alone. All right. And so that is a very densely populated country on the continent of Africa. Africa is not a country, it's a continent, right? It's made up of 58 or so different countries, all sovereign. And Lesotho is actually landlocked. It's a country within a country in South Africa. You know, so it's a little bitty island of a country inside of the borders of another country. It's just amazing. But yeah, let's go to Britain for a second. Let's go to England. There's this thing called the Windrush generation that people should look up. You should Google this. It's called the Windrush generation. And these were folks, and I believe they were from the Jamaican islands, who were brought into England to do promised citizenship and the rights that came along with citizenship. They did labor, menial labor for, I forget the time period, but if you Google it, you'll see that in the last few years, England has had its own reckoning with this whole generation of Black Britons because they tried to ship them, they tried to deport them. You know, they said they lost their paperwork. They forgot the agreement that was struck with their grandparents, you know, 40, 80, 100 years ago. And they tried to kick them all out of the country with nothing and no legal rights, no citizenship, no nothing. And England has had to apologize for that and recognize that it did some really unscrupulous, things to those people. No scruples whatsoever. Canada is reckoning with its own, with the Aborigines, the indigenous people in Canada who were there before the Canadians were there, before the French Canadians came in. There were people just like Native Americans in the United States. And they treated those people really harshly. And they had these mass graves for the kids. They had these schools where they were trying to normalize these kids and make them into Canadians, like a big social experiments, and strip them of their culture and their memory of their history and their heritage. And then they did mass graves. They would bury them, and without any customs, without any regard. And they're finding these graves now all around these schools in Canada today. And Trudeau, Prime Minister, has apologized for Canada's treatment of its own indigenous people. And then if you go to Australia, right, and look at the Aboriginal people there, they are getting the same kind of treatment, man. And I can go on, right, about how melanated people, the African diaspora all over this globe, has received very similar treatment from different countries who were all basically colonizing them and trying to take their wealth and strip them of their heritage for their own personal profit. And it's not unique to America.
And hearing you say that, James, because I was aware of some of that, but this is interesting because I'm a big proponent of unifying, regardless of where we come from, different countries, continents. I think all of us should kind of try our best to be on the same accord, because I'm, being on YouTube, reading articles and talking to people. Sometimes I'll have an interaction with an African brother or sister who may see themselves as being different than me. And I'm all about unifying and knowing a little bit about history. In my mind, I'm thinking, well, regardless of what you want to talk about, you guys have kind of been treated the same way, So I think figuring out a way to remove some of those barriers can help all of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Bob Marley sang about it, right? Africa Unite, right? That was a song, right? Marley was trying to do the same unification. How beautiful it would be, to see the unification of Africa, right? I'm trying to remember the lyrics right now. It's a great song. It's in my head. I'm humming it right now. It's a beautiful song. Africa Unite is kind of the chorus. But yeah, it would be a beautiful thing. But here's what I've learned about humans, right? And if you look at places like Rwanda, where one tribe of Africans was trying to exterminate, through genocide, another tribe of Africans. To say black on black crime is not unique to America. I mean, it happens in Africa. When it gets down to it, between the different tribes, they have intertribal or warfare as well. That's been going on as well. So that's a human trait. I'd say the Europeans have taken it to a new historic level when harvesting the manpower and the souls of Africa for its own production in the sugar fields. Sugar is where it really started, the sugar cane fields, right? Because Europe wanted its sugar, and so it's hard to take sugar out of sugar cane. It's a very laborious process. And so in the European colonies in Jamaica and was Haiti before Haiti got its independence in 1894 or whatever, through Toussaint Louverture, right, in the Haitian Revolution, the Black Jacobins, and America was sugar, then it became cotton, and other crops to yield the textiles. So if you look at a lot of the wealth of Western Europe, it came on the backs of African Americans and other, melanated people in these colonies, which were British colonies. So yeah, it's about history now. We've got to know how this has all happened to us, and it's happened all over the world.
It's funny you say that, because that was one of my next questions. So James, a part of me doing what I do now, the passion I have now, speaking to my people, trying my best to convey different levels of empowerment that can help us, all came from me learning history. I'm a brother who grew up in the hood, man, had 2 kids by 18 years old, drugs and everything around me. So I had a particular environment that did some things to me. And when I began waking up and seeing things, it was upsetting to me when I learned my history. When I said, hey, young men around me are selling crack and doing all these things. These things are horrible. I see the results of them. And I learned that there may have been outside forces that help with some of these things. It was heartbreaking and it made me want to do something. So speak to me about all of us, regardless of where you come from. Well, I'm speaking about the United States right now. All Black people in this country learning our history. Like, how do you think that can help, regardless of what you do for a living? How do you think that can help just knowing like the root of certain things that you're looking at?
Oh man, it's everything. It is everything. I'll just give you a couple of different versions of the same sentiment, the same thought. The Bible says in John 18:32 that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make or set you free. Okay, that's the Judeo-Christian Bible. That's how it speaks in the New Testament in John chapter 8, verse 32. If you look at, let's take Frederick Douglass. When he had his freedom initially from Maryland to Baltimore, I forget the part of Maryland he was in, but when he went to Baltimore, and he had to teach himself how to read and write, because his slave owner, the wife of the slave owner, initially started teaching Frederick Douglass how to read and write. And then the husband came in and go, whoa, what are you doing? Once they learn how to read and write, they're no good to us anymore. They're no good. Their minds are essentially open, and they know what's going on. The jig is up. Once they get educated, do not educate them. And he forbid her from teaching Frederick Douglass how to read and write. So Frederick Douglass had to learn. He taught himself by playing games with the kids, the little white kids in the neighborhood, because he was watching the little white kid in his own house. That's why he was brought to Baltimore, to be, the overseer of this little white boy. And then as a boy, he'd take him to school, and then he would teach him. He would play games with the kids in the neighborhood about the letters, and so they were teaching him the alphabet and how everything went. And that's how he was able to teach himself, was using the kids who were getting educated at school. He was getting their education from them by playing games with them in the neighborhood. My smart brother. And then, as the story goes, once this white woman, the slave owner, figured out that her husband was right, she started treating Douglass worse than he ever did. She became just a tyrant toward him. It was terrible what she did to him and how she treated him. So that's the thing. They knew the reason we were forbid to learn to read and write, because they knew the power of education. And if they wanted to keep us enslaved, partly the enslavement was our bodies, but the biggest enslavement was our minds. And that's how they kept us enslaved. And that's how they keep us enslaved to today, is because, what's the saying? It hurts me to even understand this, or to have this in my head. But if you want to hide something from a black man, put it in a book.
Yep.
What the hell is that all about? Right.
Yep.
And so so you got to read. Right. And my wife, God bless her, she's like, baby, you need to read more. And I'm like, look, I read a lot. I was an F-15 fighter pilot, senior executive in the Department of Defense. I'm an engineer. I read a lot. I write a lot. I speak a lot. She goes, no, you need to read, not technical things, not work things. You need to read to educate yourself. Read for you. And she taught me that here in my 40s. My wife taught me to read for me. And that freed my mind again, because as Carter G. Woodson said it, right? The father of Black history, in his book,
Black History Month. Yeah.
The Miseducation of the Negro is the name of his book.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We have not been educated for ourselves. We've been educated for them and their system. We haven't been educated for ourselves, and we haven't learned to educate ourselves. And they won't educate us. And that's what the whole critical race theory fight is about. Critical race theory is a legal construct. It's not being taught in schools. It's a legal construct. But those in power in this country, don't want real history to be taught, because then we understand our value, and we understand what's really been done to us and what is still being done to us. And so that is another way to keep our minds enslaved. Definitely.
You couldn't have said it best, because James, when I seen the critical race theory argument, at first I was like, wait a minute, is this even real? That I hear people creating a opposition to just learning real history. There's other things you can oppose to that type of thing. But the fact you're just opposing, you don't want a white kid to feel like they're at fault for it. this is this is crazy, man. Everybody should know real history. We're not pointing the finger at anybody, but the history is the history. You can't change what's actually happened, right?
Well, you would think so, but you can change how people remember it. You can. That's
there you
the
go.
saying. History is written by the victors.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's not sleep on this. And so you can change how people remember it and how they contextualize it, and then what they do based on that knowledge. There's a wonderful book called *Sapiens*. It's by Yuval Harari. I don't know if I have a hard copy. I do have a hard copy up here. So I do a lot of my reading through my ears. So get an Audible account. It's fantastic. This book, *Sapiens*, by Yuval Harari, Jewish guy, beautiful book. I think it was published in the 90s or so. It's been reprinted. Let me see when the original publication date was on this. It's been out for a minute, but it's been republished. New York Times #1 bestseller. It was originally published in 2015 is the last reprint. Originally published in 2014. Okay, so it's 8 years out. First published in Hebrew in Israel in 2011. So it's 11 years out. And then it was converted, translated to English and published again and again. *Sapiens*. This book says so much. It is a wonderful read. It's in Audible, so you can just get it and listen to it on your commute for your listeners out there. And that's how I do a lot of my reading, especially in DC, commute around here. You're going to be in the car for a minute, so you can get a lot of reading in through your ears. And it basically talks about the fact that if you want to move any more than 140 people, okay, if you as an individual want any more than 140 people to move in any one direction for any reason, you essentially need to give them, and they need to have a common belief system, because after you get over 140, you can't have enough organic one-to-one relationships with each of those people as an individual yourself in order to know what they're going to do, know how they're thinking, and be close enough to them to really know how they're going to move. Okay. So what you have to give them is a common belief system, so that the belief system tells them how to move. And then you don't have to, you can then move 280 people or 500 people or 5 million people or 50 million people or 5 billion people. You can move as many people as you need in any different direction if they have a shared common belief system, or what the book calls a mythology. Okay. And it's something that it's a construct that humans create, and humans are unique in this way. Animals don't do, other animals don't do this. But it's a construct that can be passed down, can be taught, learned, and remembered, can be enforced, reinforced, or can be broken down, dismantled, and forgotten, and treated like it doesn't even exist, right? But you have to control that construct. You have to control that mythology. In America, a large mythology that controls us is white supremacy, right? It's the belief that white people are superior. That's not true. But if you can reinforce that through policy and law and different states' laws, and you can keep it in the schools, the mindset going, if you can break down the things that break down that lie, then you can keep that lie in power. And if that lie stays in power, that mythology stays in place, then that belief system, then people continue to react according to that belief system, which is also what Carter G. Woodson said about miseducation of the Negro, is as long as we're miseducated and we're bought into that other belief system, we'll keep operating under it, which is that we're subjugated to it. And that we're the lower class of it. And he says, you won't have to tell a black man to go into the back door. He will go to the back door himself. And if he doesn't find the back door, he will create one for himself so that he can enter where he knows his place is. Yeah. That's what Carter G. Woodson said about the mind of the black man under this belief system, under this mythology that this book breaks down. It's beautiful. And so when you think about Trumpism is a mythology. And people buy into it to the order of 80 million people, but it's based on the mythology of white supremacy, right? And that's, so that's what it's all about, is belief systems. And so, yeah, if you control the belief system, you control the power and you control the people. And so the fight against critical race theory is a fight to control the belief system that we're all ascribed to, and that our children and our, as we matriculate into adulthood, you got to keep that belief system of white supremacy and whiteness at the top of the social hierarchy and strata in place and in power. Definitely.
That's wow. Of course, I'm aware of these things, but that was put brilliantly. They are doing their best to keep it alive through actions. Now they're creating policies and doing things, but it's definitely a myth. Now, what I wanted to touch on too, because I appreciate everything you're doing for our community, brother. And in a second here, we're going to get to the Anjel Tech app, how it works and everything about it, everybody. But I knew this brother had some information, and I want my people to understand who we are and where we come from, and how a lot of these things start. So talk to me about your experience in the military, like being, you said, a F-15 fighter pilot or something like that. Talk to me about that experience. Like how did that help you as a person?
Wow. I always wanted to fly because my dad was in the Air Force, and so I grew up around airplanes.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be in the sky. You know, the saying is to have air under your butt, you know, just to be aloft. I've always wanted to do that. And when I went to the Air Force Academy, I had the privilege of learning to fly, starting with gliders. And so I learned to fly airplanes without engines first. And that teaches you, which is what the Wright brothers did. They learned how to fly gliders before they put an engine on it. And it makes you a better pilot. You know, when they would go up to Kill Devil Hills in North Carolina there, you know, near Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. I mean, they were from Dayton, Ohio, right? The Wright brothers, they were from Ohio. And they built their flying machines and contraptions in their Ohio bicycle shop. And then they would truck over to North Carolina because it had the best combination of a sea breeze coming off the coast there, the East Coast, the North Carolina coast. And it had the best combination of soft landing areas, sand. Kill Devil Hills was a big sand dune, and it had big hills. And it was pretty unpopulated. It's pretty isolated. So all those combinations meant that's where we're going to go fly our gliders and learn how to fly. And that's where man first took flight, you know, powered flight, that is. But others like Otto Lilienthal and others, they've been gliding before the Wright brothers ever started gliding. You just can't do it very long because you got to jump off a cliff, right? So I learned to fly gliders first and manage your energy and learn how to fly, to, you know, read the sky and manage wind currents and thermals and things like that, and different types of lift mechanism to stay aloft. Before I learned how to fly powered aircraft. And that was a great education because it teaches you, resilience. It teaches you how to read your environment better and look to signs in the sky and in society and see how the winds are moving and what's really happening, and know how to flow better, I believe. Know, when to land and when you need to land, or we need to land right now. And so then when you start flying with powered flight, then you're just a better pilot because you have all these bird-like instincts already kind of baked into you. And then I got to fly, different propeller-driven aircraft and different, jet turbine aircraft, and then ultimately the F-15, which is God's jet because it's undefeated in combat. Over 100 victories, no losses, 102, I think. Ever in aero combat. It's the most successful fighter airplane in the history of mankind. I mean, it is a beast. That bad boy is something else. It is amazing. I can talk to you all day about that plane alone. But what you get from flying fighters is you get a level of aggression that you need. You get a level of fight that you need. You get a level of confidence that you need. You get a level of smarts. You have to be intelligent to fight those planes. Those things are extremely complicated machines. And just to operate one, let alone deploy one and make it, fight with one and fight another airplane in the sky and learn, fluid maneuvering and how to maneuver your airplane through the sky so that you end up behind someone in their control zone and you can stay there and punish them and kill them and not be killed by them. That's a whole other type of fighting. They call it dog fighting because it looks like two dogs in a fight. It's very violent. It's very fast. It's very close in. It's also akin to a knife fight in a phone booth, people say. So that's a whole other edginess that you get from doing that occupation. And that is very helpful in business.
I was just going to say, I'm sure, just like a person who's an athlete or any intense environment where you have to use your instincts and do certain things, I'm sure if the person does everything correctly, you can translate that into business. You can translate that into your regular life. So, wow, that's amazing. A lot of us will never fly a plane. You know what I mean? So just to hear about how that feels, and no cars, we're used to driving in congested areas, but just being up there, I'm sure is great. Now, something else I want to bring up just really quickly. So your experience, it sounds like it was positive and it helped you. And again, being there 30 years, everything you're doing now, I applaud you, brother. For our young people, do you, I'm sure you consider the military as like a viable option, right? Like for a young person who, graduating high school or whatever, if done correctly, you can embark on that career and get things out of it. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a great place to get all kinds of world-class training, education to serve your country, the great benefits, the VA, Veterans Administration, you know, home ownership was made affordable, and for African Americans in particular, but veterans. You know, the way to wealth accumulation on average in this country is home ownership, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so through the VA benefits of being in the military, the VA will essentially like co-sign or allow you to get a loan without putting any money down. You can get a home loan with not that big 25 or 30% deposit that most people don't have to buy a home. And you can, the government will back you. They will guarantee your loan for you, so you don't put any money down. That's a huge benefit, because then you have access to buying a home with essentially no money down. There's like a 2% funding fee, which you roll into the amortization and just the payments of the loan. So you're not coming out of pocket, you know, at closing for anything. And then you get to build equity, you know, and that's it. That's the American way to home. To most people accumulate wealth in this country through home ownership, and it has been that way from start. And VA helps you do that as one of your benefits. So besides the education and the opportunity to get out of your zip code and go see the world and understand that the world is not like your 5-digit zip code where you were born, it's tremendous. I would recommend it to anybody. But know this: the military is a microcosm of society, and you're going to experience the same things in the military that you do on the civilian side. It's just in a slightly different packaging, you know, a slightly different context, but it's the same problems are there that we experience out here. So don't go in thinking it's the panacea and you're not going to experience. It's just a different rule set, a different environment, but the same stuff happens. It just happens through a different protocols and a construct of a military environment. And that's sad, but that is just true.
Definitely. Definitely. So I want to, you know, finally get to your app. And I'm impressed, brother, because I think all of us should do what we can to help our people in whatever way that you can. In the fact that you've been in corporations and you've been in places where it may not be a lot of us, and you've endured these environments and still said, hey, I'm going to do something to help my people. I think that's one of the cornerstones to us getting out of where we are now, is people who are smart, people who are accomplished, because people always say, you know, because I'm being a dude who was raised in a particular neighborhood, people would give you crap if you moved out of the hood, right? Like, you move out of the hood, you don't love us no more. Initially, as a kid, I would say, yeah, he's not here no more. He's not helping out. But as I got older, traveling, I say, you know what? I don't care where you live at. I appreciate it if you go on to be successful, go on to help, go on to do things, and say, you know what? I have to still help people who look like me. So that's really important to me. So talk to me about the Anjel app. I read that George Floyd situation, those type of situations, going to your mother-in-law's house, getting lost, was kind of the catalyst. So talk to me about the creation of this app.
I'd love to talk to you about the creation of Anjel Tech, but let me first touch on what you just said about you know, staying where you were born. And there are reasons to do that, and there are benefits for it. But I was having lunch with a gentleman yesterday. His name is Paul, and we were in the cafeteria of the agency that I just left. And, you know, it was my last day there, and I was just meeting people that I cared about and I really want to spend time with before I leave. And I'm having lunch with Paul, and you know, I said to Paul, we were talking about, because we're both from the same area of Alabama. He's from Abbeville, and I'm from Eufaula. And it's funny, my mom actually gave him his first job out of high school. And so we go way back, just family-wise. But we both agreed that our small Alabama towns are great places to be from. But if you want to make your mark in the world, if you really want to get up and out and you know, see something, do something, you have to leave and go see the world, go travel the world, go have your eyes and mind open, go get a lot of experience and things that are out there, and then come back and bring all that accumulated knowledge and probably wealth that you weren't going to accumulate there in that system by and large. It's like, oh, I'll change the system from the inside. You need to get out and then change the policies that created the system, and then the system will change itself. But to try to change the system from the inside is kind of a fool's errand, I think, in just about any construct. So I think you got to get out and get some other resources and some other education and experience and perspective, and then come back and apply that to where, and one of my proteges said this to me and I was mentoring him, and he gave me something. You always get more out of your proteges mentoring than you provide to them as a mentor. And he said to me, he heard somewhere else that you should go where your heart breaks. And I was like, man, go where your heart breaks. That's where you need to be, is where your heart, whatever issue breaks your heart, go there and work on solving those problems, because you were trying to stop your heartbreak.
Oh, wow.
And so you're going to put all of your effort and resource and time into making your heart well. And so you're going to fix those problems. So whatever breaks your heart, that's where you should spend your time, trying to fix those problems. Whatever you care about that much that it breaks your heart, go there.
Damn.
And I'm like, damn, exactly. I was like, that's some profound.
Because at first when you said it, I was like, break your heart. But I was like, oh, because that's what I'm doing. That's the same thing. What happens to my people breaks my heart. I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop trying to address it. That's power. That's a young man that said that?
Yeah, it's a young white dude. He's one of my proteges. He's coming to me for guidance, and I'm, giving him pearls, but I'm getting so much back too, right?
Man.
Yeah, it's like Frederick Douglass, I mean, it's an information exchange.
Yes,
right? Always. And so, yeah, he and he's, I brought him into the agency and got him his first federal job out of college, and, just kind of taking him under my wing. I mentor a lot of people, and I mentor a lot of diverse people. I'd say most of my proteges probably look like me, right? Male and female. But then again, I'm also reaching to some folks that don't look like me and mentoring them too, because that's how you create allyship. Because when these people matriculate, they're like, I had a black guy who treated me like he was my son. And he looked out for me. And so therefore, I've been loved. I'm going to love back. And I'm going to go out of my way to help you, because someone who didn't look like me went out of their way to help me. And so I have proteges that don't look like me for that reason, and others, also because I want to give to all people. I'm not trying to just keep it all myself. You get more from giving anyway. So anyway, he taught me that, and I'll never forget that.
Definitely. And that's, that's wow. Because I want to continue talking about the Anjel app, but I think when it comes to allyship, like you said, I'm, as much as I hate racism, James, I know all white people aren't racist. This is my understanding, right?
They're not all racist.
Some of them, their blind spot is created by living in these white enclaves where they never see anyone black. So the interaction isn't there. I think a part of being in the urban community, what I can say about dealing with people from other races, because I had to deal with them, I soon learned, wait a minute, they're just like me. I may not like something, but there's a lot of similarities. Because I have to be around them, I see the similarities. So what you're doing, I think that's brilliant, because he says, wait a minute, this guy's smart. This guy's a human, just like my uncle, like my dad, like everybody around me. And he'll go into his working experience, his career, his family life. He'll be more open-minded. And that's all we can hope for, right?
Yeah, I mean, it helps. It helps us all. It really does. Man, so much to say about what you just said. First of all, yes, you're right. Not all white people are racist. They're not. They may all be benefiting from the system of racism.
Great point.
Okay. They all have white privilege.
Great point.
Whether they like it or not, whether they want it or not, they must recognize and admit that the color of their skin in this construct, this societal construct that we live in, called America, this experiment, gives privilege to people who look like them. Period. And every white person has to admit that, and they know it. And there have been studies and seminars, like the lady who did the blue eye, brown eye experiment.
Yes,
remember her,
Jane
right?
Elliott.
Jane Elliott. Yeah, she talks about this. She had it. You can watch. You go on YouTube. And she says, anyone. She's talking to a room full of white people. She said, "Does anyone in here raise your hand if you want the treatment that black people get?" Silence. No one raised their hand, because they knew. They know. And so that's what Dr. King said. In the letter from the Birmingham jail. And he said, the white moderates who know, but because they're benefiting from it, they won't work with us to change the system, because it benefits them and it benefits their grandkids. And that's what all those white women did when they voted for Trump. They know that he's going to perpetuate the system that's going to benefit their children. And that was their vote. that's what they did. They went there. As a mom, they're like, I got to protect my kids, and this system gives me power. It's going to give my kids power, so I got to protect it. And I'm just going to vote. This guy may be a rogue and a thug and everything else, but it's, you know, somebody's got to steal, break, or take the things that are keeping me in mind and power, and he's going to steal, break, or take them. So I'm voting for it. It was just that simple. Just that simple. It was existential. It was survival. It was primal. That's what that vote was. It was about their existence, right? And so, yeah, but not all white people think like that. Some do. Enough do to vote, you know, the way 80 million of them did. But not all of them are like that. And there are plenty who, I say plenty, there are some who died, freedom riders, you know, trying to shelter and help Black people, you know, and white women and men, clergy and alike. And King's letter from the jail was challenging those who were hiding behind their privilege and not behind the cloth, right? The letter was to the clergy, especially. Like, you know, you guys espouse Jesus, but you're sticking to your privilege, right? So who are you really with? And so, yeah, that's just our system, right? That's our construct. But not all people think that way who have their skin melanated or not melanated. And there's some of us with melanated skin who have bought completely into the mindset of the majority, right? Sir. And the saying, all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
And I struggle with that, James, because I want to. I see so much negativity sometimes with us. I see so much infighting that I say I need to be the solution. So, but when I see a person who doesn't like us, or a person who some may call a coon, there's a time in my life where I was infuriated and I wanted to just, let's remove them from our community and, you know, talk amongst ourselves without them here. But then I got to thinking, like, wait a minute, I don't know. Maybe we need to talk to them. Maybe they just need more information. Maybe I'm trying to make sure everyone is kind of included, but it's difficult when, as we've been speaking, if you know our history, what's your motivation for being that way? So I guess it's always about what's the actual motivation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And it goes back to, you know, what you believe in. And, you know, who you're with, right? And so that's why I started this conversation with letting you know what I believe in. You know, I believe in the Bible. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. That is my grounding construct. That is my belief system. And that is where I draw my power and my strength. And it is supernatural. It is outside of me. It is meta. It is above my physical and you know, my spiritual plane. And everyone has got to have something to tap into that's outside of them and above them, and that's mine. And so when push comes to shove, I'm going to default to Christ-like behavior if and when I can. And love, yeah. Christ was a fighter too. Okay, he wasn't a punk. He was a fighter. He was like, no, you know, he's turning tables over because people were not doing the will of God. They were abusing that, and they were selling indulgences, and that's what the whole, you know, Protestant Reformation was about. Martin Luther, and people were selling these same types of things, forgiveness of sin, in the synagogue, using, you know, different animals to, you know, pay for the sins, and it was a business. He was fighting against the business of grace, and it's people, the world had made it into a business, and he was highly upset about that. He wept when his friend Lazarus died. You know, he had feelings. And so that's where I have to go back to. That's my grounding. But when I see injustice, you know, around me, it's not, you know, meekness is not just turning the other cheek and taking it. Meekness is being strong and standing in the face of it to oppose it, right? And when we're charged to be salt and light, we're charged to shed a light on darkness. And darkness isn't an element. It's the absence of light. Light is the element. And when there's no light, then darkness just is there. But once you turn a light on, darkness goes away, because darkness isn't a thing. It's just the absence of light. And we're to be salt, to preserve, to slow down the decay and the entropy that we were told about these last days that we're in, and where the world is ultimately going. And we need to be about our business and our Father's business. So that's my default. But that doesn't mean you stand in the face of injustice and do nothing. It means you stand in the face of injustice and say it's wrong, call it out, shine a light on it, and then seek to change it, because that's the humanity that God gave all of us. And we were all created equal in our humanity and in our value and our worth. We weren't all created the same. We were all created equal in our value.
Wow. And hearing you say that, I can see why you created the app. That I like that, brother. Being really grounded in your belief, but in reality at the same time. I think that becomes difficult for people at times. So give everybody just a couple of the details about the Anjel app, because I just downloaded it on my phone and I'm gonna start getting it going here in a minute. But tell everybody about the details about it and why it's so important.
Yeah, the details of it is it's an app. It's a personal body camera, right? Because we've seen how injustice just prevails at the lowest level of law enforcement, right? When police officers in particular, but not just police officers, private citizens, as in the case of Ahmaud Arbery, in the case of Trayvon Martin, private citizens take their citizen arrest, their stand, your ground laws, and they either invoke a fight or, stalk and hunt someone, out of their pickup trucks, and then they videotape it like it's a effing safari, and which ultimately did them in. So, there's poetic justice for you. The case of Ahmaud Arbery. But, video is incredible. It's that light. That is the shining light of our generation, is video. And because phones are more camera and computer than they are phone anymore. And this is why these phone companies, Apple and Google, Samsung, and these guys are like, we need to make that phone the best camera in the world. And it is. I have a digital SLR, a really nice Canon camera that it sits in a bag now because my iPhone does basically the same thing that my DSLR does. I don't need this big camera with all these lenses and everything to do what I need to do 99.9% of the time. And so that's what's in your pocket now. You have the most powerful computer, you have the best camera combined to the internet that has ever existed, and it's in your pocket, and they're everywhere. And when you have that technology, and you create an app like Anjel Tech that works with that technology, you can then start shining a light and connecting your family to your plight and what's going on with you. You can give them the awareness as to where you are in that moment of could be your last or your most urgent need. You can notify them. And so we just rolled all these pieces together and made a system that helps shine a light and helps us know where we are when we need each other. It helps us know when it happens so that we're not just ignorant of the fact that, our friend or our family member is right around the block getting taken out. And we just are sitting here watching, whatever, TV, scrolling through, internet or social media, and something's happening right around the corner. So this technology, Anjel Tech, notifies you through a text and through an email and through an in-app notification, 3 different ways that your daughter or your son or your loved one needs you right now. And then it shows you where they are on a map, and it shows you where you are in relation to them. So oh, they're just around the corner. It provides you a route to get to them, and it stores it all in the cloud, and it lets you see it. You can actually have eyes on that incident by watching that stream and knowing just how urgently they need you.
Wow. Right
then and there. And if you get good at using it, you're smart about it, you'll narrate your stream. Hey, mom and dad, I just stopped. I got the phone set up on the dash, and the cop just stopped me. I don't know what I was doing. And you're just talking to your folks, and that could unfortunately be your last account, but your perspective is now going to get out there. Hey, I just got pulled over. It's dark. I pulled over here, and here's the stream. I got my registration license, and I'm gonna put my hands out the window just so he knows that I'm not a threat to him, or whatever. And when they come up, and now that interaction is all caught on film, and they know where you are, and they're like, "Oh snap! She's 2 miles away. Let's go." And they may get there, especially if you have some special need, and they know that the interaction with that cop is not going to be maybe smooth because maybe you left, whatever. You just got some need that the cop may not know about and may exacerbate the interaction between, mental health's a big issue, right now. And so it just really makes sense when you have the technology and the need is there, and we've seen the need in these societal, fractures and fission lines we just talked about, to have a technology that sort of is a help, to loved ones in that time. And that's what Anjel Tech really is. And that's why it's called Anjel Tech, because it's from Psalm 91:11. And it says that he shall give his angels charge over you and they shall keep you in all of your ways. They shall bear you up lest you dash your foot against a stone. They shall help you. And that's why it's called an angel, because it lives in a cloud and it helps you.
Okay, yeah, I see how I like that. I like that. Okay. That definitely makes sense. Now, I was reading, talk to me about the discrete part of the app. It seems like if you do need to send the information to your mom or someone, your phone doesn't like alert or your phone doesn't make a noise to alert the authorities or something, because I understand that sometimes when we pull out our camera phones, a cop or someone may begin to act a little different because they see the light and they know they're on, they know they're actually on camera. So talk to me about the discrete portion of the app that people can use.
Yeah, so right now in version 1.0, when you stream, the screen is going to show that you're recording, and that's intentional. The discretion comes in the fact that it's not audible. So if they don't see your phone, they don't know. But in some states, you have to declare, hey, I'm filming you. And they should declare if it's a one-party consent or two-party consent, know the laws in your state and apply the technology appropriately.
Got it.
But, in most states, most courts, from my reading and research, have upheld that you are allowed to film a police officer in the conduct of their job as a citizen of that community, as long as it's in a public space. And if it's a one-party consent state and you're one of those parties, then you can do it without their permission. If it's a two-party, then in some states, if you're one of those two parties, then you can do it without their permission. And if it's a cop and, and they're in the performance of their normal duty and you're in a public space and you're not obstructing them from doing their duty, then you can do that as well. And so, be smart on the laws in your state and your area, research that, but it's a tool to help you, if at all possible, have something to where you're not trying to sue the police union to get their body camera footage, because that could be hard and expensive and it may not be profitable. You may not be able to get it. Maybe years later, you may not know what happened until years later. You may not, and then the account you got at first is like in the case of Ronald Green, I think it was in Louisiana, was, he got in an accident. And it wasn't that, oh no, he got beat down. Or Rodney King, when the first report came out, before the camera came out, we didn't know what happened. For George Floyd, the first report from Derek Chauvin was, how he died, was the account wasn't that I killed him.
Yeah.
It never is.
Yeah.
Their account is never first, I killed him. And so the truth, has to come out, and that light has to shine on it. And that's the camera. And so the first line of defense in my estimation is let them know as a deterrent. I'm filming you right now. My mother, my brother, my sister, my loved ones see you. They're all watching. Officer Jones, badge number 4276. Is that what that says? 4276? Okay, Officer Jones. Wow. I want you to know that my family's all watching this right now. Oh, I text you. Yeah, bro, I'm stopped. Yeah, it's Officer Jones. Oh, my family's texting me because they see that you pulled me over and they just want to know what's going on. And Officer Jones, that yes, I'm filming you. Oh, you would put the camera away, but I think I'm allowed to film you. Oh, well, yeah, Officer Jones, I think you're infringing upon my rights now. I'd like to have a conversation with you. Okay, I'm going to keep it safe. Officer Jones has asked me to turn the camera off. I don't know what's going to happen now. I don't think that's right or legal, but you have his badge number and his name. You know where I am. I think that's my dad pulling up behind you, Officer Jones. I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm here, but there's a car behind your car now. I don't, I'm trying to obey the law here, whatever. But it's a tool, it's a resource to help you have that ability to navigate it the best you can.
And yeah, and I was thinking when you were saying that, I'm like, man, okay, instant audience. My phone's on, but everybody in my family's watching you too. So I have 4 witnesses now of what's actually taking place. That's brilliant, brother. Now, also, I read that, okay, yes, police brutality, interaction with someone of that nature, but also your grandma, right? If your grandma is in a position where she doesn't have help that day or something, and she falls or something happens, she can have it on her phone and she could do the same thing. Well, hey guys, I'm fell in my apartment. Can you come help me out? So domestic violence too, right?
Yeah, there's lots of use cases for it. I'll go back to, I'll come to the parents thing, because I actually used this app to help my parents once when they were coming back from their COVID shots and they got lost. And I used the app to help them get home. True story. But the other thing about the police, though, is it also protects them. Okay. Now, everybody's being held accountable at that moment. Their camera should be on and working, and they should have turned it on. It should be operable. your camera is on and working. You've told them that there should be on, and you're just trying to have a civil discourse here where everybody does their job, and accountability and civility is in that moment. So it helps ensure them and protect them too. And that's what I want to say to law enforcement out there now, is that this is not just for the consumer, it's also for you. It can help you as well. And I think, you know, the police officers that are really the good ones, they understand and get that, and they appreciate it.
That makes
the
sense.
Bad ones, and they're bad ones in every group.
Yes,
they're going to be bad, right?
Yeah.
And so, but accountability will ensue. Now, yeah, I used Angel to help my parents get home from their COVID shot. They got lost and turned around because they were going to where there was COVID vaccine supply, and it was in a small town next to there. So they traveled to get their COVID shot, their first one. And my dad fell asleep on the way back, and my mom was like, I don't know where I am. And so she called me, and I'm like, hey, Mom, tell you what, just stream to me, and then it'll send me a map of your location, and I'll be able to see where you guys are, and the iris will move, and I'll be able to see the road you're on. It'll follow you every 10 seconds. And then once I see that, then I'll get on there, and then I will, because I'm in DC and she's in Alabama or Georgia at the time, and then I'll call you back and I'll go, okay, here's where you are. I pulled it up and I can see, you know, on the map where you are, you know, online. Hey, do you see that? Do you see that landmark over there? Yeah, that Chick-fil-A or whatever. Yeah, okay, I see that. Okay, well, that you hang a left there, that's going to get you back on the street to take you back to your town. And I use the technology to help render a map of my parents' exact location when they got lost. And then I called them back and I helped them get home. And you know, that happened last year. But yeah, people who fall in their homes, you can use it to stream to your kids. Hey, I've fallen, I can't get up, come help me. If you're on a college campus and somebody's walking behind you and they're weird, you can stream to your roommate, your parents. Hey, you know, I can't get to the blue light on campus. I don't see where a blue light is, but I can stream to you right now. And in the college campus version of our app, you can also send that stream to your college campus dispatch office, your security office. It's called Angels in Campus. It's a campus version of Anjel Tech. So if you're a college student or a parent, hit me up, and you know, your university can have this and provide it to all their students and help them out that way. Domestic abuse and violence, human trafficking. It has a myriad use cases.
It's definitely, man, I'm going to tell everybody I know about this app. This is a step in the right direction. This is us as Black people saying, what can I do to help? Some of us are going to march. Some of us are going to get in front of a camera and have a press conference and help out that way. Some of us are going to be lawyers. Some of us are going to be agitators to a degree. Everybody can help out. So, man, I appreciate what you're doing, brother. And, you know, I was reading about the HBCUs and some of them being in gentrified areas. So your app is right on time, and that's definitely a market for you. So, wow, brother, thank you so much, James, for coming on the show, man, and embarking on this journey with me and giving our people information about what has happened. Everything leads up to where we are right now, but a lot of things have taken place to get us to this point, and all of us should be aware of it. So let everybody know really quickly, James, to get the app, where can they go to actually get the app?
It works all over the world, anywhere you have a cell phone signal. So it is a global platform that works globally. Our third-party cloud provider, the Angel Cloud, is a global cloud. And so if you're on vacation or traveling, or whatever, it works everywhere you are if you have access to the internet and cell phone signal. So that's where it works. Where you get it is it's available in the App Store for iOS and the Google Play Store for Android users. And I would tell everyone, if they want more information, they can go to angel.live. That's Angel with a J, and it's pronounced Angel, and it's a J because I'm James. But it's Angel with a J .live. So go to angelwithaj.live, because we want you to live. We want you to be free, and we want you to be fulfilled.
I like that. I like that a lot. So thank you very much, James, for coming on the Melanated Convo podcast. Everybody, please do me a favor, man. I'm always telling you guys, I see your tweets and how you respond on social media. I talk to people every day. I know everyone is tired of how we're treated at times. We're tired of injustice. And I do think the structure that we live in should put things in place to assist us. Like, I'm a firm believer in that. But let's just say that doesn't happen. How about we take that off of the board just for a minute? What if all we have is us, and we have to try to create things to help us out of the rut we're in? That's why I appreciate what James is doing, because this is a step in the right direction. Everybody, please download this app. We all need it. Single mothers, right? Your son have to walk home 12 minutes from his game because you're at work. I get it. My mom was like that. Sometimes there's no other option and you're nervous. You're calling them. Call them. You home yet? You home yet? Text me when you're home. And kids can use technology way better than us. So he would know how to jump right on this live. You'll be there looking at the interaction with the cop. This is beautiful, y'all. So please do me a favor and download this app. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Melanated Convo podcast. YouTube viewers, social media viewers, please subscribe to the Melanated Convo on YouTube. If you're listening from one of the digital platforms, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, everywhere the show is, everywhere you can find digital podcasts, you can find this show. Please continue to leave reviews. The numbers are going up. I appreciate it. I am going to continue to have these conversations. In my opinion, family, sometimes if you want the info, you have to have the convo. I appreciate everybody tuning into another episode. This is your brother Harrison, James Samuel Jr. Thank you for tuning in, or thank you for being with me today, brother. I really do appreciate it. Everybody, we out.